The young and the restless spoilers capturing the seductive game Audra is playing, Victor's Machiavellian manipulation, Kyle's vulnerability, Claire's emotional brink, and Holden's lurking presence. The tone will be dramatic and analytical, with immersive prose that dives deep into character psychology while letting the drama unfold slowly, grippingly, and inevitably. In Genoa City, love is rarely about trust, it's about leverage. About who controls the narrative, who bends under pressure, and who walks away untouched. And no one understands that better than Audra Charles. Beneath the polished wardrobe, the poised stride, and the polished media smile is a woman who learned long ago that playing second string was a game for fools. Audra doesn't just play the game, she writes the rules. Which is precisely why, when Victor Newman came to her with an opportunity disguised as a favor, she didn't hesitate. She listened. She calculated. And then she agreed. The mission was simple. On the surface. Expose Kyle Abbott for what Victor already believed he was: reckless, disloyal, easily manipulated by the slightest temptation. And why? Because Victor, always 5 steps ahead, smelled weakness in Kyle's proximity to Claire. The romance, dubbed Claire by those watching from the sidelines, had started off stronger than most had expected. There was chemistry. There was affection. There was even, dare anyone say, love. But Victor didn't believe in love. Not as something pure. Not as something that couldn't be broken with a little strategic pressure. And Audra? She understood the assignment perfectly. The key, of course, was subtlety. Victor didn't want a scandal that exploded publicly, he wanted a crack in the foundation. A private, quiet unraveling. Something that would make Claire look at Kyle differently. Question him. Doubt him. Maybe even walk away from him without Kyle ever realizing that he had been played like a cello in a smoke-filled jazz bar. So Audra positioned herself carefully. Not too obvious. Not too aggressive. She made sure her presence was casual, accidental run-ins at society, lingering glances at the GCAC bar, shared laughs that bordered on flirtation but never crossed the line. The dance was familiar to her. But this time, she wasn't doing it for herself, at least, not entirely. Because behind the allure, behind the performance, there was an ask. A price. Victor had promised to fund a new company for her, one she would own, one where she could control her narrative, her legacy. No more playing support to men with more money, more name value. This was her ticket to independence. All she had to do was nudge Kyle in the right, wrong, direction. And Kyle? He was ripe for the fall. Still wounded from his fractured past with Summer. Still insecure about his place at Jabot. Still eager to be seen, admired, wanted. He wasn't malicious, just vulnerable. A little bored. A little bruised. And Audra? She knew exactly how to look at him, exactly when to laugh at his jokes, exactly how to let her hand brush his arm just long enough for it to feel like more than a coincidence. The trap was almost too easy. But what Audra hadn't calculated was the line she might have to walk with Nate. Because while her loyalty to him was still real, still warm, there was a part of her that knew he wouldn't understand. Not if he knew everything. Not if he saw the quiet manipulations for what they were. Nate was many things, but he wasn't Victor. He didn't play chess with people's hearts the same way. He believed in honesty. In communication. In relationships that didn't involve baiting another man just to secure your financial future. So Audra kept the plan tucked close to her chest. She told herself she could have both, the man she loved and the business she deserved. She told herself that she could walk that razor-thin edge and not fall. But how long can anyone pretend before the mask starts to crack? Elsewhere, the walls were beginning to close in around Claire. She didn't know about Audra's plan. She didn't know about the whispers Victor had planted. But she felt something. A shift. A tension in the air. Kyle, once fully present, had started to seem distracted. His phone buzzed a little more. He paused longer before answering. He smiled at something unseen a little too often. Claire didn't accuse. Not yet. But the seed of doubt had been planted. And then came Holden Novak. Now, Holden wasn't a villain. Not in the traditional sense. He wasn't plotting anyone's downfall or whispering lies to sabotage Claire. But he was watching. Observing. And somewhere along the way, he started to care. About Claire. Her resilience. Her conviction. Her vulnerability hidden behind pride. Holden wasn't hunting Claire, he was just waiting. Because if the relationship fell apart on its own, he wanted to be the one standing there when Claire needed someone to lean on. He didn't want to steal her. He just wanted to be there. And if Kyle tripped and fell into Audra's trap? Holden wouldn't have to do a thing. So now the stage is set. Audra walks a wire, balancing Nate's trust against Victor's reward. Kyle teeters on the edge of temptation, blind to the manipulation coiling around him like perfume in the air. Claire feels the cold creep of betrayal just out of sight. And Victor? He watches from the shadows, confident that the future he envisions, his future, will soon come to pass. Because Victor doesn't need to destroy Kyle. He just needs Claire to doubt him. And in Genoa City, doubt is the beginning of the end. Would you like me to continue with the moment Claire catches Kyle and Audra in a compromising situation? Or a confrontation between Nate and Audra if he discovers her plan? I can build this into a multi-episode arc with fallout, redemption, or revenge, your call. This is such a juicy storyline setup, and you're absolutely tapping into the emotional tension that the young and the restless fans love, the collision of legacy, romance, and control. You've posed the perfect question, should Kyle and Claire call it quits, making way for Holden? Or does Genoa City still have room for a Claire future? On paper, Kyle Abbott and Claire Grace Newman should work. They're attractive, well-connected, and when they're together, there's a charming ease between them. They're the kind of couple that turns heads when they walk into a room, not just because of their pedigree, but because of that quiet sparkle in their eyes when they share a private joke or finish each other's sentences. They're cute. They're comfortable. They're safe. But cute doesn't always mean destiny. With summer on the horizon, the air in Genoa City is growing thick with tension. Romantic, strategic, and emotional. And as the heat rises, so does the doubt. Not just from outside voices like Victor Newman or Summer Newman or the ever-scheming Audra Charles, but from within Claire herself. Because sometimes, even if something feels right in the moment, that doesn't mean it's meant to last forever. Claire and Kyle have become familiar. Maybe too familiar. Their connection, once charged by the thrill of unexpected romance, has started to feel routine. Predictable. Comfortable, yes, but comfort can sometimes dull the edges of passion. And while Claire may not say it aloud, it's becoming clearer that a part of her is starting to wonder, is this it? Is this the grand romance she fought so hard to claim independence for? Enter Holden Novak. From the start, Holden was positioned as a neutral party, a curious, reserved, maybe even slightly aloof newcomer. But the moment he met Claire, the dynamic shifted. It wasn't about love at first sight. It was more subtle. A flicker of intrigue when she challenged him. A smile that lingered too long. A moment of silence that didn't feel awkward, but electric. The kind of chemistry that builds slowly, but with weight. It's not the fire of instant lust, it's the kind of tension that simmers and waits for the right moment to boil over. Holden didn't come to town looking to sweep Claire off her feet. That's what makes it all the more dangerous. Because his interest isn't performative. It's quiet. Steady. Respectful. Which is exactly the kind of energy Claire hasn't experienced much of in her chaotic Newman world. With Kyle, there's always the shadow of the Abbott legacy. Always the whispered judgment of outsiders. Always the pressure. With Holden? There's none of that. Just curiosity. Possibility. Freedom. And that's precisely what makes Victor's plan so powerful and potentially devastating. Victor doesn't need to hate Kyle to want him out of Claire's life. He just needs to believe Kyle is a weakness. A distraction. A tie to the Abbott family that compromises the purity of his dynasty. He's always believed that alliances are stronger when they're strategic. And in Kyle, Victor sees a young man who is still too naive, too emotional, and too easily swayed to be a good long-term match for his granddaughter. So when Audra approached him with a plan to unravel Claire from the inside, without messy public scandal, without direct confrontation, Victor didn't blink. He gave his blessing. And perhaps even more dangerously, he gave her resources. Audra's plan doesn't involve full-blown seduction. She knows better than to cross that line. What she does intend is a carefully calculated erosion of trust. Subtle conversations. Moments engineered to be witnessed. The kind of accidental closeness that makes Claire wonder if Kyle's heart is as grounded as he claims. And Kyle? For all his sincerity, he's still emotionally vulnerable. He's still licking wounds from summer. He still wants to feel admired. Needed. And Audra? She knows exactly how to offer that. If the plan works, Claire will walk away. Not in a blaze of anger, but in quiet disappointment, the kind that cuts deeper than rage. And when she does, Holden will be there. Not with a grand gesture. Not with a confession. But with a presence. A willingness to listen. To be patient. To let Claire find herself again, not as a Newman, not as Kyle's girlfriend, but as Claire. So the question becomes, should Claire fall apart? For fans of slow burn, high-stakes drama, it might be time. Claire and Kyle had their moment. But maybe they were always a bridge, not a destination. Maybe their role in each other's stories was to help one another grow, but not to stay. And Holden? He's a blank slate. He doesn't come with baggage. He's not trying to fix her or use her name for power. He simply sees her. And that's something Claire may find harder and harder to resist. But what of Victor? Would he really be happy if Claire ended, only to see Claire fall into the arms of someone he didn't handpick? Someone who isn't yet a proven Newman ally? The truth is, Victor's rarely satisfied unless he controls the outcome. So if Holden wants a real chance with Claire, he'll have to do more than be present, he'll have to prove his worth. To Claire. And to the man who still pulls many of Genoa City's strings. And then there's Summer, still watching. Still waiting. Still wondering if her own fractured love story with Kyle has a second act. She may claim she's moved on. But if Claire dissolves, don't think for a second that Summer won't re-enter Kyle's orbit. Because in Genoa City, no love story ever really ends. It just waits for the next twist. Would you like me to write the actual scene where Claire catches Kyle in a suspicious moment with Audra? Or the moment Holden finally confesses his interest? I can take this triangle, quadrangle, even. And deepen it into full episodes, with emotional dialogue and all the fallout. Just say the word. In a quiet room filled with fading afternoon light, Daniel Romolotti sat with an acoustic guitar balanced carefully across his lap. It was an old instrument, aged, a little weathered, but beautiful. It carried the kind of sentimental value that time can't touch. His fingers hovered above the strings, hesitant, as if unsure whether he was worthy to touch it. The guitar had once belonged to his father, Danny Romolotti, and had been gifted to him on his birthday so many years ago. At the time, Daniel had brushed it off, too young, too impatient to understand its worth. But now, sitting beside Tessa, he felt the weight of it. Not just the wood and strings, but the legacy. The love. The unspoken connection between father and son that music could bridge. Tessa sat cross-legged on the floor beside him, radiating patience and warmth. She smiled gently, her eyes full of quiet encouragement. Okay, she said softly, we're not going for perfection here. We're just going for sound. Let's start with a G chord. Daniel fumbled slightly as he placed his fingers on the fretboard. The first strum was harsh, off-key, and sharp. He winced. That sounded like I'd just insulted the guitar's ancestors, he muttered. Tessa laughed, not unkindly. It's supposed to sound like that at first, she said. The strings are just meeting your fingers for the first time. They'll warm up. You'll warm up. Try again. He strummed once more. This time, the sound was still rough, but there was a faint echo of melody beneath the imperfection. His shoulders relaxed just a little. Then he looked at her, really looked at her. Promise me something, he said. Don't give up on me. Even if I'm bad. Even if I'm really, really bad. Tessa placed her hand gently on his arm. Daniel, I wouldn't have sat down next to you with this guitar if I wasn't ready to be here through the off notes and the magic. I won't give up on you. It was more than just a promise about music, it was about healing, about grief, about choosing to show up. And for the first time in weeks, Daniel smiled, not because he felt better, but because he felt seen. Elsewhere in Genoa City, inside the sleek, polished ambience of the GCAC lounge, the energy was far from peaceful. Sally Spectra paced back and forth in front of the bar, her jaw tight, her voice sharp with emotion. Across from her, seated calmly but ever curious, was Audra Charles. She raised one finely arched brow as Sally finally turned to face her directly. Do you know what really infuriates me? Sally began, her voice clipped but quivering. It's not even that Phyllis is meddling again. That's her brand. That's what she does. It's that she's using this manipulative, weepy routine to get Billy to feel sorry for her. To make him question everything. Audra sipped her drink slowly, unfazed. You mean, emotional blackmail? Yes. Sally nearly shouted. She's milking every ounce of sympathy she can get. 1 second she's the victim, the next she's the martyr. She knows exactly how to guilt-trip Billy into giving her another shot, or worse, into thinking I'm the problem. Audra nodded slightly, letting Sally vent. Sounds like you feel threatened, she said smoothly. Sally's eyes narrowed. I'm not threatened, she snapped too quickly. I'm annoyed. Frustrated. I'm worried about the fallout if Billy doesn't wake up and realize she's pulling his strings. Of course, Audra said neutrally, her voice unreadable. It's just, you've been on edge ever since Phyllis reinserted herself. You don't trust her motives. Because she doesn't have any motives, except one, win. Always win. She wants to win Billy, win her son's approval, win the sympathy vote from every corner of the room. Audra gave a sly smile. Then you better make sure you're not playing defense while she's playing offense. Sally sat down, her shoulders sagging slightly, the fire in her tone cooling into something heavier. I just don't want to lose him, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Not to her. Not to history. I've fought too hard to build something real with Billy. And she just takes up space. Emotional space. She's everywhere. Audra, surprising herself, softened. Then maybe the next move isn't about Phyllis. Maybe it's about you. Making sure he sees what's in front of him, not what's behind. Sally didn't answer right away. She stared into her drink, swirling it, the reflection of the GCAC chandelier's warping inside the glass. It just shouldn't be this hard, she murmured. Loving someone shouldn't feel like a competition. But in Genoa City, everything was a competition. Love. Loyalty. Legacy. Back in the quiet room with Tessa and Daniel, the final chord of the lesson echoed softly into silence. Daniel set the guitar down carefully and exhaled, as if letting go of something unseen. That was harder than I thought, he said with a half-smile. But also, I needed that. Tessa looked at him with a quiet kind of pride. Sometimes, she said, finding the courage to make sound again is harder than finding the right note. He nodded. Maybe that's what I've been missing. Sound. Any sound. Something to drown out the silence. You've got music in you, she said. You just have to give it a way out. Daniel glanced down at the guitar once more, then at Tessa. Will you keep helping me? Tessa's eyes lit up. Every step of the way. Outside, the city moved on, full of secrets, schemes, and second chances. But in that room, with chords still vibrating in the air and healing slowly taking root, Daniel took his first step toward something new. Something alive. Would you like to continue this with Phyllis confronting Sally directly? Or Nate starting to catch on to Audra's shifting loyalties? I can keep threading all these dynamics forward into the next storm of revelations, confessions, and heartbreaks. Just let me know the next scene you want developed.